All right, so let's talk about yoni eggs. I get a lot of questions about these, and here's my 2 cents. I'm not against them or for them. They are a tool, but they are a tool that is certainly not a panacea for your pelvic health the way that it is often discussed. And like any other tool, it's all about how you use it. First, I just want to talk about a couple things about your pelvic health in general that is important to know, and then how these relate to yoni eggs. Improving pelvic health and function, like orgasmic capacity, sensory, just like your ability to feel, prolapse, incontinence, all of that requires motility and strength of your pelvic bowl, right? All of your tissues within that. Now, a yoni egg could be a tool that is utilized to create mobility and strength if it actually helps you create mobility and strength, which I would argue for a lot of women, it doesn't actually help them do that. And here's why. If you're just wearing a yoni egg and like walking around, which I know a lot of people, like a lot of yoni egg people, like that's not what they recommend, but I think that's what a lot of women actually do. I think that it's important to note that that can often just engender gripping within your pelvic tissues, right? So that might just make you like hold onto it, which that constant tension, any more than constantly gripping your hand, is going to strengthen your hand. No, it's not going to strengthen your hand. It's going to make your hand sore and tight, right? That's the same thing that's going to do for your pelvic bowl. You're not actually gaining any strength just by doing that. You're not gaining strength really in a functional way. What helps us gain strength in our pelvic bowl is the same thing that helps us gain strength in any other tissue, which is its constant movement through full range and eventually under load. So are you able to mobilize with a yoni egg? That is really what would be the most useful. However, most women who put them in aren't actually able to do that. And then they feel like they're struggling, and then they're like tense, and then they're gripping, and it's like really not helping. The other thing that happens is if you have a prolapse of some kind, say a cystocele, where your bladder is bulging into your vaginal canal, then sometimes what happens is women insert their yoni egg and their bladder is kind of low lying. So they'll sort of go around their bladder, and then the yoni egg will sit on top of that bulge within the vaginal canal. What it's then doing is just pressurizing that bladder down. It's kind of resting on your prolapse, adding more weight, drawing it down. The same thing can happen with your rectocele, right? So for women with prolapse, I mean, unless, like, if your prolapse is flaring and you actually have that bulging into your vaginal canal, you're not going to put it below because that doesn't really make sense structurally, likely, and putting it above is actually adding weight. So in that way, I think it can actually really worsen prolapse. Now, if you are doing this laying down in like a skilled way where you're able to actually utilize your intravaginal muscles to move a yoni egg up and down, I can't personally do that, and I don't have, but I don't think that means anything like terrible about my pelvic health. I know there are some influencers that are like, this is what we need to be able to do. We need to have all of that musculature being super mobile. And I guess like that is cool. Like, I don't think there's anything against that. But the idea that actually the capacity to do that or not is a significant indicator of pelvic health, orgasmic capacity, or symptomatic presentation, it's just not something I agree with. So, in summary, is your yoni egg helping or harming? 1, if you're just wearing it while walking around, that ain't it. If you have prolapse and it's resting on your prolapse, that ain't it. If you're putting it in and it's causing you to grip in your pelvic floor, that ain't it. All those things are not helping your pelvic health. If you feel skilled and in a like supine or laying down position, you're actually able to mobilize within your pelvic tissues and move it around, and that is helping you gain like motility and proprioceptive awareness, cool. I think that can be a useful tool, but I by no means think it's like an essential thing in your pelvic health toolkit.